Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a video tutorial for the new Boston. In the last example we looked at classes, properties and methods. Now in this example we're going to look at how we can put this into use and actually display out our balance. So what I've already done is I've created a class called bank account, which we're going to reference as a new bank account later, and we've created a property called balance, which is equal to 0. Now at the moment you may be thinking, well, I can do this normally in PHP, so why would I change it? The difference is it's structured so much better that later on what we can do is we can give a bank account to 2, 3, 4, 100 people without having to store any particular information. So we can create 2 different instances of this bank account and run along having 2 different balances. So this object is reusable. Okay, so in our public function display balance, we need to echo out our balance. So we're just going to basically simply say echo. Now, usually in procedural PHP, you'll think to yourself, well, yep, this is absolutely easy. We're just going to say echo balance and then that's it. However, what we actually need to do is we need to reference the fact that we're taking a variable from this class itself. Now, we've created the balance as public, so we're able to use it wherever we like. What we do is, instead of just echoing out the balance itself, we need to say echo this, then we do a hyphen and a greater than sign. So we're taking something from this, and this as a variable with a dollar sign means this class in general. So we're echoing out a value from this. Now we need to specify the variable name. Now this might confuse you, because what we're going to do is we're going to type the variable name like this. We add the semicolon on the end, so that's nothing to do with this. But you'll notice that I've referenced the variable balance without the dollar sign. So this is the way we reference variables when we're talking about within a class. We just give the plain name, and this will take the value of balance, which is 0 at the moment. So at the moment we have created our balance to be 0 earlier on, and now we're echoing out this balance, so we're echoing out the balance here. And you can do this with any other properties that you might have. So we're essentially just echoing out our balance, that's it. So let's make this a bit more user friendly before we begin. I'm going to say balance colon and then a space, and then we're echoing out the balance. So how do we go about echoing this out? Now we can't just say echo something or bank account something. What we need to do is we need to create a new instance of our class, and our class name is bank account. So let's create a variable called Alex, for example. So I've created a variable called Alex, and this is going to be my new bank account. So I'm going to say Alex equals new bank account. So new is the keyword we use in creating a new instance of our class. So we're creating a new instance of our class which is going to be held inside Alex. So what I can do now is I can say Alex, and I can use this notation here to grab different things out of my class. So what I can do is I can say Alex and then this, so our hyphen and our greater than sign. And then what I can do is I can either echo out properties within my bank account, or I can run methods. So I can say display balance. So all I need to say is display balance. So let's recap on what we've done. We have created our method before, and now what we've done in this part of the tutorial is we've echoed out this balance. So we've taken this variable here from this bank account. Okay, so now what we've done is we've created a new variable called Alex and assigned this to a new instance of the bank account class. We don't need these parentheses here, by the way, sorry. So we just need a bank account on its own. So remember, this is case sensitive, so ensure you've got a capital B and A for these two, depending on what you name your class. The classes can be all lowercase, but it tends to be standard notation that you use camel caps or capital letters somewhere, so it's easy to read, sorry. So now what we're doing is we're taking this new instance of Alex and we're displaying the balance. So remember, you're going to need the parentheses here because it's a method within our class. So let's go back to our page and refresh and see what we've got. Okay, so we've been displayed with balance 0. So we've successfully used a method within our class to read out, or echo out rather, a property within our class. So let's change this to 10.5 and let's refresh to see if that works. Okay, yeah, so the balance is now being updated. So we have, like I said before, we've taken our method called display balance and we've echoed out the balance that's currently inside this bank account. Now when we create a new instance of this class in another variable, this property balance will be able to change depending on each variable we assign this new bank account to. So we'll look at that a bit later on, but I just thought I'd mention it now because you may think that as it stands you could have done this just normally in PHP. You wouldn't have had to use object-oriented programming. So let's think about returning a value rather than displaying it. So let's return balance. So now what we can do is we can write echo here, and we're basically echoing out the return value. So when we refresh, we get exactly the same thing up. So this is probably a bit better way to do things. Just say you're returning a value, and we can do whatever we want down here with the balance. So it's exactly the same as functions in PHP. We're returning a value from this method, which is grabbing this property up here, and then we're echoing it out inside our code. So you can see that if we did it without the echo, you're going to get basically nothing up on the screen because you're not doing anything with the returned value. So we can echo this. We can even create a new variable, for example, called balance, and that equal to our display balance. However, we're not going to be doing that for now because we're just going to be demonstrating echoing out different values. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, back with another PHP tutorial for the new Boston. In the last object-oriented programming example we looked at, we created a class called bank account with a property of balance, and we've set this to 10.5 just as an example. We've made this public for now before we talk about properties and their different types. We've just created it public so it can be used by the rest of our page. Now we've also created a method which is called display balance, and we've echoed this out here. You can see it returns a value here of balance and then this balance. So returning the value of the balance, which we've now echoed out onto the screen. But what happens if we want to start to modify this balance? So within a bank account you can obviously display your balance, but you can withdraw and you can add funds to your account. So you can add money. So we can go ahead and we can create another method, and we'll name this first and then we'll talk about how we're going to do it. So we're going to say public function withdraw, and we're going to create the skeleton. So we've got our parentheses here, and then we've got our curly brackets here as well. So within withdraw, what we want to do is, much like a function in normal, like when you're programmed procedurally in PHP, we want to take in a parameter. So I'm going to take in int or amount, for example. That makes it look a bit better. So we have a function now which is called a method, so we're going to be calling them methods, called withdraw. And with this withdraw method we can specify a specific amount of money that we want to withdraw. So let's go ahead and start the calculation. Now what we want to do is, we don't want to return a value to the user because our balance will return a value. Our withdraw is going to do everything in the background to withdraw the funds from the bank account. So what we can now do is we can say this, remember we use the this keyword, or the variable if you like, to which, the variable this corresponds to the whole of our class. So we're saying this balance, so we're picking up the variable here much like we did in this part here, and then we're saying equals this balance. Now this is equivalent, and then we say minus the amount. So we're taking the parameter that we've fed in, or the argument that we've fed in, the argument here, and we're minusing, so we're using the minus mathematical or arithmetic operator here to minus the amount that we specify. So this is the same as if we were going to do balance equals balance minus amount. However, because we're working within a class, we need to reference it this, and then we use the hyphen and the greater than sign to get the balance from this class. So the current balance, which is a property inside this class, is equal to the current balance minus amount. So what we've done here is we've successfully created a method that is going to withdraw a specific amount from our bank account. So let's say before we display our balance, we want to withdraw a certain amount. So withdraw a certain amount is obviously going to take away an amount from our balance. So let's go ahead and do this. And then we're just going to touch up this method to ensure that we can't withdraw any more than we actually have in our bank account. So we simply say Alex. Remember, we've created the new instance of the variable of the class up here. We say Alex, and then we say withdraw, and then obviously in the brackets, much like we did with display data, we didn't put anything in the brackets because there's no arguments in here. With withdraw, we just specify an integer amount. So we could say withdraw 5. So if we want to withdraw £5, we withdraw it. What this will do is it will take away 5 from the property balance, and then it will echo out our balance, so we're displaying our balance. So let's just go ahead and comment this so we know what we're doing. New instance of class. Then what we're doing is withdrawing £5, and then we're displaying balance. So what we've done is we've created a new instance, which is fine. Now what we've done, the difference is before we display the balance, we're making a withdrawal of 5. So let's go back. Now what should happen is we should display the balance out as 5.5, as you can see here. So we've displayed the balance out now as 5.5. So we've successfully withdrawn £5 from our bank account. In fact, I'm going to get rid of these comments because I know it's going to make it look a lot messier. Okay, so now what we need to do is check inside withdraw whether we can withdraw this money or not. So what we need to do is we need to create an if statement. We need to say if this balance, and we can pop that in brackets just to make it easier to read. If this balance is smaller than the amount, so if our balance is smaller than the amount we're trying to withdraw, then we need to say echo something. Otherwise, we can make the deduction from our bank account. Okay, so in here we can just say echo, or we can even throw a new exception, but we'll deal. I have tutorials on throwing exceptions, so you can take a look at that. So we've got just echo not enough funds, or money, we'll say, to keep things simple. So let's go back and refresh, and we can see that that's absolutely fine. Now let's try and withdraw £12. So let's go down. So we're going to say withdraw £12. Now what we should do is get the error message, not enough money, and then it's still displaying our balance because we've specified displaying our balance down here. So not enough money. Now we can create this error in many different ways. However, for now I'm just going to echo this out just to keep things simple. So what we've done in this tutorial, let's just briefly recap. We have created a new method called withdraw, and we've allowed the user to withdraw a certain amount of money from their bank account using this amount argument. We're checking if there's enough money in the account first of all, otherwise we're deducting the balance from the balance property, or the amount withdrawn from the balance property. And we're doing this by calling the method here, which is referenced to the new instance of the bank account class that's named Alex. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and I'm back with another tutorial for the new Boston. Now in this video we're going to look at different properties in object-oriented programming inside of classes. We're going to be looking at the public, protected and private property types. Now let's go ahead and create a new class. I'm going to create a class, and this is going to be called bank account. And inside this class we're going to address some properties, so we're going to create some properties in here. So let's say, or we're going to create one and we're just going to chop and change around with the public, protected and private. So let's say public balance equals 3,500. So this is a balance of a bank account. I've shown this in my previous examples in some of the other tutorials using this code here, which we created a little bank account. We were able to deposit and withdraw money, and also apply it to multiple users. So if you haven't watched that tutorial already, go back and watch that and you'll probably understand this one a lot better. So our properties, our property for now is balance. Now let's go ahead and create a method. So I'm going to say public function display balance. And what this is going to do is it's simply going to return this balance. Now, if you haven't already come across this here is a representation of the class as a whole. So what we're doing is we're taking the balance, and bear in mind we're not using a $sign here. We don't use a $sign when we're taking a property value from a class. So we're saying, out of this class as a whole, take out the balance. So we're returning this balance value, which will be equal to 3,500. So now what we can do is, outside of our class, we can create a new instance of it. So let's say Alex equals new bank account, capital A there, remember it's case sensitive. So Alex equals new bank account, we don't need the parenthesis there. And then what we can do is we can say echo Alex display balance, okay, and remember the parenthesis because we're dealing with methods. So we're echoing out the displayed balance of this account. So let's go over to our browser and check this out. Okay, so you can see that in our browser we have the value 3,500 that has been written back to us. So what we've essentially done is use this method here to return this value here, this property value, and then display it using by calling the method, if you like. So now what happens if this data type is changed to private, for example? Now let's go back to our page, and just with this simple change, when we refresh this time, oh, okay, right, I see why. So what we've basically let's go ahead and change this program around. So we've got public balance to start with. What we're doing in here is we're displaying the balance, but what we can do, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of use this function, I'm going to demonstrate the public, protected and private by just echoing out the property inside. So what we can do is we can say echo Alex balance. Now let's go ahead and see what's happened. So at the moment we have our property set to public. Now let's see what happens if we set it to private and we refresh. You see that we've got a fatal error: cannot access private property bank account balance in. Now you'll notice that we've got these two little colons here as well. For a static value like this, we can also do this like this. So let's go 2 colons there. It produces exactly the same result at the moment. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, so don't worry about that for now. Yeah, we'll leave that out for now, not the point of the tutorial. So we're trying to access this private value, but we cannot. So let's change it now to protected and press F5. You see that we've now got another fatal error: cannot access protected property bank account balance in, and it tells us what line we're on. So there are different naming standards to distinguish between different private, protected, or public. So let's go ahead and say public balance, or we'll just say balance. So a public variable will usually be denoted balance, and then you will have camel caps, but the first word, if you like, will have small letters. So balance of account, for example, would denote a public variable. So let's go ahead and refresh this. Oh, okay. Balance of account. There we go. Let's just update that. Let's go ahead and refresh, and oh no, okay, so Oh right, okay, yeah, so sorry, let's go ahead and just put var in there and refresh. So we've got 3,500. Now let's go ahead and change this to underscore balance. Okay. Now you can see that what's happened is we're saying, oh no, undefined property there. Let's go underscore balance and refresh. Now the value stayed the same, but we've got an underscore balance here, and for protected properties we use an underscore and then a T. So it's just sort of a naming standard, if you like, for your variables to distinguish between them. So it doesn't actually change anything, but this is how we name different things. So if you remember that public is starts with a small b, well in this case, and then we'd have camel caps afterwards. A private would just have an underscore before it, and a protected would have an underscore and T. So you can see that with the public keyword we're able to access the variable outside, however with the protected or the private we're not. So let's go ahead and call this method again, so display balance. And let's go ahead and refresh to make sure everything's working properly. Okay, so 3,500. Now let's change this to private. So what's happening now is we're returning the value inside here, and it's a private data type, whereas before it didn't let us. Let's check what happens. Okay, so it comes up with 3,500. So it's allowed us to use this private balance within our class. So now let's go ahead and change this to protected. And let's come and refresh, and you can see that this time it's still displayed it. So you can see that while we're accessing things inside of our class, protected and private are both going to allow us to do this. However, public is going to allow us to access it outside. Now, why do we do this? What's the reason for our public, protected and private keywords? Now, if you were to have a variable inside here, such as the bank account balance, that you didn't want to allow to be displayed on its own, you can set the type to private, and this means that the integer as a whole, or the variable in general as a whole, can't be accessed outside unless a method within returns that value. So for example, balance we want to keep as a private value, so we can't say echo Alex balance. So this line here will work because even though it's private, the method inside of it is accessing this variable. We're not accessing it from the outside. So we're calling a method that is accessing this variable, or this property rather. But however, echoing out Alex balance is not going to work because we are trying to access it from outside, and it is a private property type. So that's just basically a bit on properties, just so you can get the hang of why we do them, why we give different property types to properties, and a bit of a demonstration on what works and what doesn't. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a PHP video tutorial for the new Boston. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at constants in within classes, so within object-oriented programming. So first of all, let's talk about what a constant is. Now, a constant is not actually a variable, it's a value that's assigned almost like in the same way as a variable, but it will always remain the same. So you're not going to be able to change the value of this constant, hence the name constant. It's constantly the same value. So let's have a look at a few examples. We've got pi, for example, is 3.141. So this would be a constant because pi, the value of pi, is never going to change. We could also have something like someone's name, for example. If you were specifying a page with just a single name that you knew would never change, could be a constant. So anything can really be a constant, but we're looking at more literal constants like the value of pi, which will never change. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to create a class that's going to calculate the area of a circle. So we're going to create a circle class. We're going to have a constant in there called pi. I'm going to show you how to to use this constant, because we can't use constants in the same way that we can use variables. And then we're going to create a method that's going to calculate the area, and then outside of our class we'll create a new instance of our class, and we will find the area with a given radius. So the first thing we need to do is create our class. So I'm going to call this class circle. So let's bring down with our curly brackets. We need to now create our constant. So I'm going to first of all demonstrate how we access this constant outside of our class, and then we can use our method within to use this constant value. So we're going to use the const keyword, and then we're going to say pi equals 3.141. And that's it. We've created our constant. The name of our constant is pi for pi, and our constant keyword lets us know that it's a constant. Now, outside of our circle class, what happens if we were to say circle equals new circle? So let's just, without the parentheses, let's just double check that that works. Yeah, that's fine. So we've refreshed the page and no errors. Now what I want to do is say circle, and usually to reference a variable or a property within our class, we would use the hyphen and the greater than sign to say within, and then we could say pi. So this is just going to return the value of pi. Also, we think it may not do. Let's echo it out and see what we get. Okay, so we've got undefined property circle pi, and we think, well, why? I mean, the key is in this $sign here. This denotes a variable in PHP, or a property in inside of a class. So you can see that it's trying to look for this pi variable, and it can't find it. So how do we echo out this value of pi if we can't use this method? Well, what we do is we use something with a double colon. So we say circle double colon pi. Now let's refresh. Oh, okay, so we've got this error. So let's go ahead and change this. What we need to do is we need to say echo circle, then our 2 colons, then pi. So now we're getting the value of pi from the circle class. So now we've got the constant value displayed to us. So what we can do is we can make use of this inside of our class as well as outside our class. We're not going to be echoing the pi constant outside of our class, but we're going to be creating a method now inside of our class that's going to calculate the area. So this is going to be a public function, and it's going to be called area. Remember to create your parentheses here for your arguments and your curly brackets, curly parentheses. We're going to take in a value inside our area method, and this is going to be radius. So this is the argument that we're going to take in and process. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to return the value of the area. So the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to return pi times radius times radius. So what we're doing here is we're multiplying radius by itself, so we're squaring radius, and then we're multiplying it by pi. Now this isn't going to work as it stands. I've written this like this on purpose, because you know that we need some way to access. Remember before we used this like this, so this and then a hyphen and a greater than sign pi. So we're getting the value of pi from this class as a whole. However, this isn't going to work. So let's demonstrate it first without this, and then we'll add that in and see that it doesn't work as well. So we've got nothing here. So in fact, hold on, let's come down and we'll create a new instance of our class. So let's go circle equals new circle, and then we'll say circle, and we'll say area, and we'll give it a value. So we'll say 100. Let's come in and refresh. Now we can see use of undefined constant pi, assumed pi. So here we have use of an undefined constant pi. Now we have defined it up here, however we need to access it in a slightly different way. Now usually we'd write this like this, so we'd do this and a hyphen and a greater than sign, and this would usually work. Let's refresh. You can see we've got undefined property again, the same error as we were getting up before. So it's slightly different now. Remember I said you can use the double colon to access the properties or constants outside of your class. You can do that within as well, but this time instead of writing this, you need to write self, and this is without a dollar sign. The reason for this without a dollar sign is that we're not actually dealing with a variable, we're dealing with a constant. So it's self just on its own, 2 colons, pi, the name of your constant, which in our case is pi, and then you can perform the rest of the operation. So we've got return self pi. So now let's refresh and you'll see that we've got no errors. We haven't got any output yet because we haven't echoed out the value that this method has returned. So we have a return value here from this method. So let's go ahead and echo that out and see if that works. Okay, so we've got a value return of 31,410. This is right. The reason we can tell that the calculations have worked is because obviously our value of pi is 3.141, and we've multiplied that essentially by 100 squared. So we know this is correct, this value is correct. Okay, so that is constants within object-oriented programming with PHP, how to access them outside your class, how to access them inside your class using this self and the 2 colons, and also a little program that we've created here to calculate the area of a circle. Hello, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is another video tutorial for the new Boston. Now in this tutorial I'm going to be talking about object-oriented programming in PHP and specifically constructors. Now we've already looked at the basics of classes, methods, properties, extending classes, and also using constants. So these constructors that I talk about now is basically a method inside of your class that will automatically run when you initiate a new instance of your class. So let's go ahead and create an example. So I'm going to create a class called example, and inside here I'm not going to have any properties, I'm just going to have a method, and this method is going to be public function say something. Okay, and inside of here we're going to echo something. So you already know that if we were to come down here and create a new instance of our class by using new example like that, without the parentheses. So we've created our class example, we've created a method called say something which says something literally. We've created a new instance of our class, and we refresh, nothing's actually going to happen because what we haven't done is we haven't said example say something like that. So let's refresh and see, and it says, oh no, okay, say something. Okay, yeah, sorry, I haven't included the greater than sign there. Let's refresh, and it says something. Now what happens for one or more reason if you want this method or some a predefined a predefined block of code to run as soon as you initiate or create a new instance of your class? So at the moment, when we just create a new instance of a class, nothing happens. Now we use something called the construct. Now construct works the same way as if you were declaring a method, although you write it like this. So we've got public function, then we have 2 underscores, so you've got 2 underscores there, and then just construct. See, that's turned blue, my text editor has turned that blue, and then we just put 2 parentheses on, and we put a block in there as well. Now the construct can take arguments, so you can take arguments through your example like this, so I'll demonstrate that in just a moment. So let's go now, and we want to say this say something. So what's going to happen now is that as soon as our class is initiated or create a new instance of it here, we're going to run whatever's inside this construct. So what we're going to do is we're going to be calling the method say something. So now that we've just created a new instance of this, let's go and refresh the page. And you can see that we get something. So just by adding this constructor in here, which is called a constructor, we are running or calling this method, if you like. So what happens if we want to take in parameters when we create a new class for whatever reason? We can specify them here. So I'm going to write text, or in fact I'm going to call it something. So in here, this say something, I'm now going to say something, and I'm going to say something, and in here I'm going to take a value something, and I'm going to echo out something. So now you can see when we refresh, we've got a missing argument error because we haven't defined anything in here. If I was to define, say, some text here, and I refresh, you can see how we've passed by creating our new instance of our object or our class. We've passed in this variable here in our constructor, because remember this is run as soon as our program or our class is initiated. We've passed that to our method say something. Now we've picked this what's been passed up twice now back into say something, and we've echoed it out. So this is slightly delving into why it may be useful when you initiate a new part of your or a new instance of your class. You can use this constructor method to perform a block of code that you want it to, and remember you can take in arguments as well. Hello, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a video tutorial for the new Boston. Now, continuing from our previous example, we've looked at withdrawing a specific amount from our bank account class in our bank account property. So we've got our balance set to 10.5. Now in this example we're going to be depositing money into our account. So let's go ahead and set this back to 0, and let's go down and we'll slightly modify this. I'm going to put a break here just so it looks a bit better. And if you haven't watched the previous tutorials, go back and watch them, because we do this we're learning basically object-oriented programming by example. So the example is a bank account class where we can assign a new bank account to a variable, and we can do things like withdraw, deposit money, and things like that. So let's get rid of this withdraw line, and let's start to create a new method that's going to allow us to deposit money in. So public function deposit, and in here we can just call the amount, the variable amount once again. Now there's no real limit we need to check on this, because you know the person's free to deposit as much money as they want into their bank account generally. So all we need to do here is say this balance, remember, and then we need to say equals this balance plus amount. So we're starting balance out with 0, so our balance is 0. With this deposit method, we're taking in an amount with an argument here, and we're adding it to our current balance. So let's go down and check that this works. So we're displaying our balance here, and we are updating our balance in here. So again, we use Alex, and then we say deposit, and we can deposit an amount. So I'm going to deposit, let's say, £1,000 into my bank account. So I'm depositing 1,000, and then I'm displaying my balance. So let's get rid of this line first of all and see what we're left with. So balance 0. So now let's come into our code and uncomment this. So now we're depositing £1,000, and our balance now changes to 1,000. So now what happens if we want to deposit £1,000 and then we want to say withdraw 200 and something? So we can say withdraw 245, for example. So you can already see that this is such an easy way, once you've got your correct structure set up, to do specific things with your class. So we're modifying the property values. So let's come in and refresh. You can see it's changed to 755. So we've taken 245 off of the balance. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be creating a new instance of this bank account class, but in another variable name, and this is going to allow us to have individual values for each each class that we initiate, if you like. So let's go ahead and get rid of this first of all, and get rid of this so we can write it out in a moment. So Alex equals new bank account. So what happens if I want to say Billy equals new bank account? Well, let's go ahead to our page and refresh and test our code. You can see that no error has appeared. So what we're essentially allowed to do is set two different variables with using the same class. So we're using the same values, but for two different. Well, we're using two different classes for two different users, and this allows us to have unique property values for each time we initiate it. So Alex will have his own balance and Billy will have his own balance. So let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to say Alex deposit, and we're going to deposit say £100 into our bank account. Now I'm going to say Billy deposit, and Billy might deposit say I don't know, £14 or £15 into his bank account. Now what we need to establish is whether these two values now change. We've only declared one balance up here, but because we're using two instances of this class, the values can be unique to each user. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, this next stage will demonstrate it. So let's go ahead and refresh and see if everything's okay. Yep, everything seems okay. So let's echo out Alex display balance, and remember this is a method, so we are using our parentheses at the end. So let's echo out Alex display balance. Okay, so balance 100. So I've deposited £100 into my bank account using this deposit method, and my balance is displayed as 100. So now what happens if we say Billy and change this? Well, you can see that the balance is only 15. So you can see that even though we've only got one class called bank account, we're able to use it for different users. So let's just echo out both so we can see this. So now we're going to echo Billy display balance. So we've got two different balances, £100 and £15. This corresponds to Alex and Billy. So you can see that we have two different values, two different property values. So balance is different for both users, even though we've only got one class. So you can really start to see how this can be useful in shortening the amount of code that you're going to have to write when you use object-oriented programming in PHP. So let's go ahead and just add a few more things in here. So I'm going to say Alex deposit 100, Billy deposit 15. Now down here I'm going to say Alex withdraw 150, which is not going to let us. And then I'm going to say Billy withdraw, and I'm going to say we'll just say 250 for example. So let's go back to our page, refresh. So we've got a not enough money come up for Alex, but the balance for Billy here has been changed. I know this looks a bit odd at the moment. I haven't structured it out with regards to output very well, but you can see how this value has changed for Billy, but the value is not changed for Alex because there's not enough money, and we've been given that error message through the method up here when we don't have enough money in our account. So let's just go ahead and change this to something like 98. And when we refresh, you see that the balances change again. We've got 2 for Alex now because we've withdrawn £98 out of £100, and 12.5 for Billy because we've withdrawn £2.50 from our original balance of £15. Hello, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a video tutorial for the new Boston. In this video I'm going to be looking at extending classes so we can use specific data, or rather properties and methods from another class, but quickly do this so we've created a new class to use this data. We can do this on one line, but we can also specify additional properties. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then follow along this example. This is the bank account class from the previous examples, the previous videos. If you haven't watched them already, go back and do so. And we simply have a class bank account. I'll just walk you through it. We've got a class called bank account. we've got a property called balance, which is by default equal to 0, and we have three different methods. We've got display balance, which simply displays this property. We have a method called withdraw, which withdraws a certain amount of money, and we have a method called deposit, which puts in a certain amount of money, so deposits a certain amount of money. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to think about what happens if we want to create a savings account. Now, the sort of first way of thinking about this would be to maybe copy this, come down here, paste it in, and just change everything around. So instead of class bank account, we can call it class savings account. The balance we can keep, the display balance we can keep, the withdrawal we can keep, and the deposit we can keep as well. So what we've essentially done is created a new class called savings account, but with exactly the same properties and methods of our bank account up here. Now, by doing this, we've duplicated code, and the point of object-oriented programming is that you can reuse classes, but call them different names, and you can add different properties, but keep certain aspects of your other class. So we do this using extends. You notice now I've deleted the duplication of this bank account class. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a new class, but we're going to do exactly what we just did by copying and pasting, but with one line. So let's go class savings account. Now this time, before we do this like this, all we do is we say extend, and then we give the name of the class that we want to extend into this savings account. So we're extending this bank account class to this class called savings account. So we just type bank account, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Inside here you can specify additional properties, but as of now this savings account has all the properties and methods of our bank account class. So we've got a public balance and public methods here, which we can use within our savings account. So let's just go ahead and test this. If I was to say Alex savings equals new savings account, let's go first of all to our browser and test this. Okay, you can see that nothing's come up at the moment, but this basically means that this has worked. And now what we can say is Alex savings display balance, and let's echo that out. So you can see that balance is 0. Now notice we're using this savings account class. So what we've done is successfully extended our bank account class into this savings account. So we have use for the methods. So instead of the first method I just showed you, copying and pasting the whole class and just changing the name, we're now not reusing any code whatsoever, because we are keeping the same class, but we're just creating a new class as an extension of the main bank account class. So we found a much easier way of doing things. So let's run these side by side. We've created our savings account, and let's maybe deposit some money into our savings account. So Alex savings deposit, and let's deposit £3,000 in here. And up here we'll create a normal bank account. So Alex equals new bank account. And we'll say Alex deposit, and we'll deposit just 100 in here, and then we'll display both the balances at the end. So what we've done is we've created a new bank account, which is our main class. We've deposited £100. We've created a savings account class with an instance of our savings account class, which we've deposited £3,000. But remember, this is not a main class, this is our extended class from bank account. However, even though we're using it side by side and we're creating a new instance of bank account and savings account, we can use both simultaneously. So now what I can do is say echo Alex display balance, and we can put a line break on there just so we can keep things neat, and then we can say echo Alex savings, which is our savings extended class, we can say display balance as well. So now what we should do is we should create, what we're doing is we're creating a new bank account and a new savings account, and we are depositing £3,000 in here and £100 in there, and then displaying our balances. So let's have a look at that. Undefined property, display balance. Okay, maybe I spelt that wrong. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't include the parentheses on the end, so some things to watch out for. Okay, so we've got balance 100 and balance 3000, so these could correspond to the correct values that we deposited in earlier. Let's just make it interesting, and I'll say, Alex, withdraw, and we'll withdraw, say, £20. Oh, we forgot the greater than sign there. So we were left with this value. So you can see that we can do different things to different our different classes now that we've created new instances of them. Even though we haven't put anything in here, we've extended so we can use the methods and properties inside. But what we can also do, more interestingly, is we can specify additional properties that we want now inside our savings account. And we can do the same with methods as well. So we can specify additional methods and additional properties inside this savings account class. So let's say we may have a public type, and this might equal, let's say, 18 to 25. So this is the type of savings account I have, just as an example, or we could say ISA or whatever. So 18 to 25 is the type of account that exists at the moment. And when we create this Alex savings, we can also then grab this type. Because we've created it as a public property, we can take this type of account and we can echo it out. However, this is not going to be available in our bank account class because we've created an extension of our bank account, but with this additional property, which is only available to use inside this class here. So let's go ahead and test this. We'll test it with both. We'll test it with bank account and then with the savings account. So if I was to say under here, Alex, or echo rather, echo, let's get rid of our balances. Echo, Alex, and then type. So we're trying to echo the type of account that I have in my normal bank account. Now because we've only extended our bank account and specified this additional property in our savings account class, it's not going to work. We're going to return an error. So we've got undefined property bank account type. That's because our property doesn't exist within our bank account class, it only exists within our savings account. So let's get rid of that line there. We can't do that unless we've already pre-specified it up here, in which case it will automatically be available in savings account, and I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and say Alex savings, and now let's echo out the type of account. So echo Alex savings and the type of account. So let's go ahead and refresh, and you can see that we've been displayed with the value 18 to 25, which is what the account we specified up here. So now what I was talking about earlier is because this is only available in savings account, which is an extension of bank account, we can't use it with bank account. But if we did want to use it with bank account, we can cut that from there, we can put it in there, and now what happens is this is available for each instance we create. So what we might do is we might create a new bank account, and then we might say we might give it a specific value, and we'd need a method to do this. So we could create a new method called in fact no, what we can do is we can come down here and we can say Alex type. No, let's do it through a method. So we'll come up here and we'll say function, public function. We need public function set type, and this is going to set the type of account that we're currently dealing with. So what we can do is once this function is run and we take in the type here, let's give it another name just so we don't confuse it with the property name. So set type input. We can now say this type equals input. Okay, so we've set the value of this type here to the input. So what we can do is when we now create a new account, we can say Alex set type, and we can set the type to let's say 18 to 25 current. And now with our savings account we can do exactly the same thing, because remember we've extended all methods and properties, so we can say Alex savings set type super saver. Okay, so now what we can do is we can get rid of that. We can now echo out, let's say, the balance and the type of account. So I'm going to say echo Alex, first of all Alex, and then I'm going to say type, and then I'm going to say has, and then I'm going to say Alex display balance. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to take the type of account, and then it's going to say has and the certain amount of balance that's in there, and we can append a line break on there. Let's just test this one in particular first. Let's refresh. You can see that 18 to 25 current has balance 80. So let's go and get rid of this dot. Where did I put that? Oh yeah, okay, so I've got current, the dot in there, so let's refresh. So 18 to 25 current has balance 80. Now what we can do is, because we're extending this, we're extending the method and the property, like before we just set the property inside here, we can echo out Alex savings, and then we can echo the type out. Remember, this is a property, not a method, so we're just echoing out the raw public property. So if we would set this to private, we wouldn't be able to do that. We'd have to create a method in order to return the type, as we do with display balance. So now let's go ahead and say savings type, and we can say has and Alex savings display balance. And we'll put a line break just on the end of here to keep things neat, and let's refresh. So we've got 18 to 25 current has balance 80, and super saver has balance 3000. So in this tutorial we've looked at adding another method and another property, and also extending a bank account, and demonstrating how we can create additional properties in here. I haven't shown methods, but it's exactly the same way as you do a property. You just pop that straight into savings account, and then that's unique to savings account. However, every method and property in bank account we can now use in savings account. And I've also given a short example, so I encourage you to sort of play around with this, create new methods and properties inside your savings account and bank account, or whatever classes you're creating for whatever purpose you're creating them for. Play around and see what you can do and can't do, and I can guarantee that after you've got the hang of this, object-oriented programming in general will become a lot easier to grasp. Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is a PHP video tutorial for the new Boston. Now in this tutorial we're going to be connecting to our database, but we're going to be using a class to do this, and we're also going to be using a constructor to initiate some variables first of all when we initiate this class, or when we create a new instance of this class. So what we're doing is we're taking a few things that we've learned already and we're applying them into a real life situation, or a real life application rather. So the first thing I want to do is obvious. I'm going to create a new class. So this class is going to be called database connect. So let's open that up into our block so we can start writing what we need inside of it. Now the first thing we need is a constructor, and what this is going to do is it's going to take the host name, the username and the password, and it's going to apply this to a method inside of our class. So we're only working with one class here, but we're using a constructor first of all to take in some variables, and then what we're doing is we're using a method inside of our class to actually connect to the database. Now if the database connects successfully, we're going to return true, and then in the constructor we're going to take this value, we're going to return either true or false from the method, and in the constructor we're going to pick up on either this true or false value and then echo if we've successfully connected or if we haven't. So it's a bit of a long way round of things. However, what we're actually doing is practicing. That's the main thing, we're practicing. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create our constructor. So I've got here, I'm going to say public function 2 underscores and construct. Okay, so remember the parenthesis at the end, we're going to put our arguments in there in a moment, and then our block here, remember that as well. So if you don't remember what a construct does, let me just demonstrate. Let's just echo out hello. Now let's come down here and create a new instance of our class by saying connection equals new database connect. Now what this does is as soon as we initiate this class, as soon as we create a new instance of it, this code inside this block will be run. That's basically what we're looking at when we see this constructor here. So you can see that we've run the text hello. However, if this was to be a normal function or normal method, we wouldn't automatically echo anything out. So let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. Now we need to think about what parameters we need to pass through into our class as it's created. So we need the DB host, which is the database host, and you can name these anything. I'm just calling them this because this is what I'm used to. DB username and DB password. Okay, so let's give this a test. So let's echo out the DB user, the DB host. Sorry. Append a break onto that, and the DB username, append another break onto that, and the DB password. So we're basically now testing when we create the new instance of our class, our database connect class, we're testing that the parameters are being sent through correctly. So let's say connection equals new database connect. Now in here we need to supply some parameters. If we don't, you'll see that we'll get an error. It says here blah blah blah, missing argument 1, 2 and 3, and then we've got an undefined variable in here as well. Because we haven't supplied the arguments, these are all undefined variables, and the argument error came from here, which you can see missing argument. So let's supply it with the arguments that it requires. We've got 1, 2 and 3. The first one I'm just going to say localhost, and I'm going to say root, and I'm going to say password. So let's go and refresh, and you can see that that's simply taken the constructor and it's echoed out the arguments that we've passed into it. So we know that that works now. Get rid of this. Now what we're essentially going to be doing here is performing a check to see if another method returns a true or false value. Let's go ahead and create that method now so we know exactly what we're doing. Now the method is going to be called connect, and inside this method we're going to be making use of the MySQL connect function. So what we're essentially doing is we're saying if, and we're saying MySQL connect, and then we're supplying it with a few arguments in here which are going to be gained from inside here. So it's getting quite complicated and multi-level now, but hopefully by the end of this you'll understand what's going on. If this MySQL connect is true, then we're going to return a true value, which is going to be picked up by our constructor. So we've created the skeleton outline for our connect method. Now let's go let's apply these parameters. So it's DB host, DB username and DB password. So what this will do is this will allow us to feed in some parameters or arguments into this connect method, and we're going to do that inside our block code here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if this, and inside this connect, then we're saying DB host, DB username, DB password. If this is true, do something, otherwise do something else. So in here I'm going to say if not, if this doesn't return a true value. So if the connect doesn't return a true value, it's safe to say that the connection has failed. So we're going to put connection failed. Otherwise we're going to echo connected to, and then we're just going to display the database host that we're connected to. So let's just run through this to make sure you understand. we've got a public function construct, so we've got a constructor here which is reading in some arguments from when we initiate our class. Then what we're doing is we're checking to see if this connect function returns a true value. Now we haven't done anything with the connect method yet, but when we do, if it returns a false value, we're going to say connection failed. Otherwise, if it returns a true value, we're going to say connected to DB host. So what we could say is, again, we could say if this connect DB host DB username DB password. So if this equals true, basically, because we don't have this exclamation mark here as our not, saying is it not true. So let's just test this out. Let's return true automatically in this connect function. So when we call the connect function or the connect method here and here, we're automatically returning true. So therefore we're going to say connected to, and it's going to successfully work. So at the moment, if we refresh our page, you'll see that there's nothing on there because we need to create a new instance of this connect, database connect class. So connection equals database connect, and remember we need to supply it with 3 arguments, which is the host, the username, and the password. So this actually at the moment isn't using the MySQL connect function to see if it's worked or not. We're just supplying through 3 arguments, and then we're automatically going to return connected to localhost because we're automatically returning true on this connect method. So let's refresh. You can see, oh no, database connect. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I've put connection equals database connect. We need connection equals new database connect, because now what PHP thinks I'm doing here is it thinks I'm calling a function when in fact it's not a function, it's a class or an object. So let's refresh. Connected to localhost. Okay, that's fine. We presume that would happen because we've automatically returned true here. Now let's try and automatically return false to see what happens. And you can see that it says connection failed. So we know that everything's working up until now. Now all we need to do is inside our public function connect, we need to, let's just get rid of that, inside our method connect, we need to do a MySQL connect, and we need to check if this has connected, and then we can return a specific value. So we just say if MySQL connect, we'll put a not in there, so if the connection is false, or if it hasn't worked, and we're supplying, remember, database host from the arguments up here, database username, again from the argument here, and then also DB password. So if that hasn't worked, bear in mind we automatically connect to our database because we supply this command, but this if statement's checking if it's not connected properly, then we return false. So hopefully now you can see it start coming together. Else, return true. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're connecting to our database. If it hasn't worked, we're returning false back to this construct here where we've made our check, and otherwise we're returning true back to not the construct but the check in here where we're using this connect. So now let's double check that. Let's refresh our page to see if we don't have any errors. Okay, everything looks okay. Let's create a new instance of our connect, and this will either work or not. So we can say connect equals database connect, and then we can put our arguments in here. Now just before that, in this construct, just above the if, I'm going to say echo attempting connection. Okay, so I'm writing attempting connection, and then what we'll either get is connection failed or connected to our server. So database connect, we need to specify the host, which is for me localhost, the username, which is root for me, and I don't have a password set, but let's just get rid of that for now and refresh and see what happens. Oh, again I've done the same thing and I haven't used my new keyword in there. Let's refresh, and you can see we've got attempting connection and then connection failed. So now let's try with the correct credentials. I'll type my username in there. So this will successfully connect to my database. So let's check if it works. Okay, and it says connected to localhost. So with what we've learned already, and with using this constructor here, we've automatically taken in some arguments from when we create a new instance of our class. We've read these in and we've used a function called connect, which has allowed us to connect to our database. Now, why is this useful? Why might this be useful in a real life situation? Because it's just simply an easier and tidier way to connect to your database and return errors. You can see that here we've got a really neat way to show that we've connected to our database. We don't always need to tell our users that we've connected to our database, but let's say for debugging purposes you wrote all your code like this. You're going to have detailed error information sent straight back to you without just using procedural code where you will maybe say or die, kill the page. Here we get specific information, and all we need to do is say connection equals new database connect, and we're basically done.